that's all the woods that we're going to need. We've got all our other parts, so let's start cutting stuff. So how does this all going to work? Well, so the PVC fretboard that we are going to make using this template, it's going to attach on top of this child guitar neck. And trust me, I have built necks for these instruments over the last 11 years a multitude of different ways, and this is by far the best outcome you're gonna get, is doing it this way. Previously, I've also created more acoustic style instruments where I've used a concert scale ukulele neck with the heel and the join and all that stuff, and this is far superior. So trust me on that. So it's going to, when we get it cut out, it's going to sit on top of this, and as you see, stick out off the end. The PVC, because it's Schedule 40 and solid, is rigid, really rigid, so that's going to be fine. We're not going to have any issues there. And then you see each of these X's with the circle is where we're going to put in screws to hold this down to the guitar neck. I put them in the same place as dot markers for guitar so that they kind of perform double duty. So there's a few that you want to cover up. So these two up here that go into where the nut area is, and then this on the first fret, you're probably going to want to cover those up with some wood filler and then Sharpie marker over them. But the 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, 17, 19, 21, you can leave these screws exposed, and they also become dot markers. Alright, so as I mentioned, we can't leave this nut on here because it's going to get in our way. Now, we want to leave the frets in here because if we pulled them, it would actually compromise the structural integrity of the neck. Because you'd have all these little notches, and the neck would be more likely to flex up because of all those little notches in the wood. So we're going to leave the frets in there. They're our friends. We need to take this nut out because that's going to get in the way. So just using a little flat head screwdriver here. There we go. Oh no, I broke the nut. Don't care. I'm not using it. And it's for the width of a child guitar neck, so it's not really reusable for anything. Okay, so there we go. Knock the nut out of there. And so now that's where those two front screws for the fretboard are going to sit. It's right in that groove. So the next thing that you have to address with the neck is the headstock shape. So some headstocks for child guitars are going to be what's called 6-in-line, like this. They're all on one side. Some headstocks are going to be what's called 3x3, where there are 3 tuners on each side. So this is a 4-string instrument, so you got to get rid of 2 of these tuning holes, so you could fill them, and then you'd have a wildly gigantic headstock for no reason. Totally fine, you can do that if you want. In my case, I have always just cut part of the headstock off in order to get the 2 tuning holes I don't need gone. So in this case, I've already designed a headstock for this instrument based on having 6-in-line and this headstock shape. So the design that I've made, this Cellotar is being created for a client, and it's going to be a metallic purple. I'm not sure about the matched headstock yet, kind of leaning away from that now, but so as you can see, I've designed this to be something that works as something you can cut out of this shape of headstock. So I have a completely flat paddle on the bottom here. This one has a little more of a curve to it. So I'm just going to kind of adapt my thinking to make it work. So the main thing is I just want to get the general shape correct, but kind of make it work for this guy. So biggest thing you can do is keep the most wood possible. So whatever your cut line is, you can take it right up to the edge of the first tuning hole that you're eliminating. So in that case, it's going to be that guy. And then bring this line in here. I'm just kind of roughing this out in pencil until I kind of like what I'm getting. Pretty happy with that. That should look good. And then of course, you got the original manufacturer logo there. So I'm either gonna have to sand that off, or if I do paint the matching color on the top of the headstock, then that doesn't really matter, it'll go away. Alright, so I got my purple Sharpie marker, appropriate for the finish I'm going to be doing. Just gonna make my definitive line. There we go. Now I got a line I can cut along with the jigsaw. Alright, so now that we have our headstock marked, the definitive line that we want to cut out, got to cut it with something. That brings us to our first power tool, the jigsaw. Jigsaw is probably the best cost to value ratio of any power saw that you can get. You can use them for most anything. They take a lot of abuse. This has been pretty much the only saw that I've used the entire time that I've been working on developing the Cellotar, the last 11 years. And so now we gotta cut the headstock out using our pal, the jigsaw. Not before we put on our safety glasses. Wood chips and crap fly everywhere when you use power tools to cut things, so always protect your eyes. Alright, so before you cut anything with a jigsaw for the first time, you want to try it out on some scrap wood to get a feel for how it cuts. I've done this enough that I shouldn't have to do that, but squeeze the trigger, turns on. Hold it down, it will go up to top speed. So I usually like to use short bursts, kind of like how when you're firing an automatic machine gun in a video game, you do short bursts, gives you better control. Same idea here. You can clamp this down if you want to do it that way. I always kind of just sort of hold it down to the table. So I'm using one hand to hold it down to the table while I use the other to operate the jigsaw. Okay, so now you can see I got the bottom line basically done. So now I'm going to do the outside edge. I'm right-handed, so each cut kind of has a way where you're going to have the most control on it. This one, I think I need to flip around. Yep, there we go. So once again, it's fighting me there. So flop it over and just cut to that line. Okay, so now we're closer to being able to do this top line. There we go. And we got the basic shape cut out. So as you can see, one of the downsides of a jigsaw is oftentimes you're not cutting straight down. The blade will kind of bend And so that did happen here, but we can correct that during the sanding process. Or I can even kind of just go back and trim a little bit off, but I think I'm just going to do it in sanding. Now that we can stick the neck on the outline of the body, you can see kind of where we're going with this.